June 2025, Taipei, Zhongxiao, Dunhua area, the corner of Zhongxiao and Dunhua streets. Very nice shopping around here. And I started putting together some notes a while back on a topic of interest, personal interest, the e-commerce environment in Taiwan for the foreigner. For foreigners who want to start a little side hustle maybe, and have been thinking of opening an online store, whether it's an existing marketplace or a standalone business. And the more I went into it, the more of a rabbit hole it became. So I thought maybe some of the findings will be interesting to some other hopeful individuals. So let's get into it. First of all, a disclaimer: none of this is advice or a tutorial on how to do anything. If you follow any of the steps, you're doing it on your own, at your own risk. So for starters, I'm a foreigner in Taiwan, a long-term resident with an ARC, Alien Resident Card, but it's not the permanent APRC yet. I do have a day job and my employer doesn't mind my side hustles. The ARC doesn't depend on the employer either. And this is a seemingly common set of initial conditions, a foreigner in Taiwan. And it makes the whole e-commerce setup process rather challenging and convoluted. There's no wonder that many people quit after a few attempts. The other relevant starting condition is that I don't have a legal entity for this purpose, meaning an e-commerce business. If I had one, whether within or outside Taiwan, that would have made some things easier. But given the trial and small-scale nature of this endeavor, I couldn't justify the initial and ongoing costs of a legal entity just as yet. It's not huge, but it does cost money, which I prefer to save. And I think the same goes for most others who try this at first. So yeah, I think it's relevant to a lot of people. Unlike in the US and Canada, incorporating in Taiwan is relatively more costly relative to the potential revenue and local incomes. So that's a factor. Broadly speaking, there are three ways to start an e-commerce business. The simplest and usually the easiest one is to join one of the existing e-commerce platforms or marketplaces that have all the tools integrated, from the digital storefront to the payment gateway to the shipping options, the CRM, etc., etc. Globally, this would be Amazon. In Asia, it would be probably Shopee. And in Taiwan, locally, it's usually a mix of Shopee, Momo, and Coupang. There are also alternative platforms like eBay, mostly for second-hand items, or Etsy, that is mostly for design things, arts and crafts. All of these means you have immediate access to a large potential traffic, but less control over your branding, marketing, and customer data. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the third way is building one of your own storefront from scratch, hiring your own developer, separately contracting the payment gateway and all the other like auxiliary services and shipping services, etc. So this way you control everything, but you also have to pay for everything individually, and the costs aren't shared across the larger user base. So it's quite expensive. That's why only some of the largest retailers will do, and it's definitely not for small business and definitely not for an individual seller. So I'm definitely not going down that path. The middle of the road, like what most people do, most up-and-coming businesses do, is having a standalone store integrating the web services through one of the large e-commerce service providers. So globally, that is something like Shopify, Wix, or BigCommerce, and there's a couple of regional players in Asia as well. This would be optimal for someone starting out small, but with eyes on a longer-term future. And the problem for Taiwan, though, is as a country, it's generally not present on many of these platforms. And namely, the problem is that the payments aren't integrated all that well. In my case, I needed to be present in both an existing marketplace like Amazon or Etsy, preferably several of them, to test out my idea, and also as a standalone shop outside these marketplaces because of the nature of the product. Basically, I wanted to lean on the inherent customer base on the market platforms, marketplaces, but also start building my own product-oriented brand or business. And because my research took weeks, I would run into some hurdles for each of the potential channels. Over time, I figured these hurdles would reoccur, and they're somewhat unique for this situation, being a foreigner in Taiwan. Some of these occur immediately, like the platform is not operating in Taiwan. But a lot of time, the landmines are planted way further down the road. So I mapped out the environment. I did it kind of post factum, but initially it looked sort of like this. On the top, there are e-commerce marketplaces, and in the bottom half is the service integrators, platforms like Shopify. Looking at the top international marketplaces, Amazon at first glance seems workable in Taiwan. In Taiwan, you can buy items from Amazon.com from all over the world, although with some restrictions. Some items don't ship here because the seller doesn't know how to do it, or because there are export restrictions on some items. However, as the seller, the obstacle begins right at the registration page. Apparently, as of today, summer 2025, you cannot sell as an individual seller on Amazon from Taiwan unless you have a legal entity. So Amazon is out of picture for me for now, although I may get back to this at a later date. If you are a company, you will have to provide some documents for it, your registration and proof of address and stuff like that. Now on to the niche marketplaces. eBay didn't seem to present any immediate issues for a seller in Taiwan. I haven't gone very deep into it because my product is a little bit different. Let's just say it seems to work at first glance. I'm seeing that it supports Taiwan. I'm presuming you can ship items from here as well. So yeah, let's say it works. Etsy, on the other hand, is a similar platform, but it's more for the individual designers or small businesses. At first glance, it doesn't seem to provide an option to sell from Taiwan. Yes, you can register as a buyer, indicate your location as Taiwan, but there is no Taiwan location for setting up a shop. However, because I looked into some other countries, and somewhat randomly I found out that if you indicate your location as Hong Kong or Singapore, the shipping options indicate a whole host of countries to ship from, including Taiwan. The same option doesn't exist when setting up the shop, say, in Canada. So at least on the surface, if you have your shop registered in Singapore or Hong Kong, you could be able to ship your product from Taiwan. The bank account, however, cannot be in Taiwan. That option doesn't exist. But you can indicate Hong Kong or Singapore or seemingly any other location where you have your bank account. The choice of the banking jurisdiction is rather important because it cannot be changed later in Etsy. You will have to restart your shop opening process. There is also a bit of a problem when indicating your personal address. It has to be the same as the address where you file your taxes. This is common for most of the US e-commerce platforms or marketplaces. It must be a holdover from the US practices where platforms are supposed to send you the W-8 BEN form. And for me, this is a bit of a problem because the web form doesn't allow me to select Taiwan as the address for residence. I will let that confusion kind of while we look at the other big marketplace in Taiwan. This is an interesting trio. Shopee, although it's registered in Singapore, is essentially a Chinese company, as the majority of the products and the sellers and the buyers are kind of from China and sell all over Asia. Momo is a Taiwanese platform owned by the Fubon Financial Group, and Coupang is a relative newcomer to Taiwan from South Korea, but it has expanded very aggressively in the past 3 years. So to some extent, you would say it's kind of a Taiwanese company here, locally at least. I see their ads all the time. So allegedly, over 70% of their product are Korean, although I suspect a lot of them are actually in China, at least those that are sold in Taiwan. I have looked at both Momo and Shopee just out of curiosity. They're both aimed at selling to the Taiwan market only. And if you want to sell in different countries on Shopee, you have to register individual stores in those respective countries. For instance, Shopee for Singapore has to be registered in Singapore. Both on Momo and Shopee, I ended up requiring or having to show a Chinese name for the registration at the very end of the process. And that's where I gave up on them. For better or worse, I don't have an official Chinese name in my ID. There's a process where you can apply to get one, and it will be added to your local ID, but this isn't something I would like to do just for setting up the shop, because there may be some long-term implications, or it might turn into an actual legal name change, which is a totally different ballgame. For similar reason, I never bothered to investigate registering on Coupang. Now on to the service integrators, or actual e-commerce engines. The biggest global one, Shopify, is actually a Canadian company, well known, has been established for many years, and it's great for scaling your business globally. And I really wanted to have a Shopify at first. And unfortunately, it's not so great for starting out of Taiwan as a small business. There's nothing in it that stops you from registering a store. The problem is with the payments and logistics integration. Shopify's native payment system is based on Stripe, and from what I know, none of the Taiwan banks are connected to Stripe as of now, like June 2025, directly at least. That leaves the third-party payment gateway options on Shopify, but not as a native built-in feature. There's a number of third-party options that are available in Taiwan, including the major Taiwanese operator, ECPay, also known as the Green World, which works reasonably well. And you can also connect the logistical company, Kuroneko, the Japanese one. And also you can connect 7-Eleven for shipping, etc. But all that adds substantially to the cost and the administrative processes. You'll be basically doing 3 contracts to manage your shop overall, and 3 sets of transactions and invoices for each sale. And yeah, that's not something that I am ready to do for a little kind of side hustle. So I searched around and found a few more e-commerce engines that operate in Taiwan. The one that many people use is Shopline. However, their rates are a bit higher than Shopify, but they're based right here in Taiwan, and they have an integrated payment gateway, and they are integrated with logistical provider like Kuroneko or 7-Eleven. And I spoke with someone who runs a store based on it, and it works great if you have a physical store in Taiwan. So what's the obstacle? Well, they don't work with individual foreigners, even with an ARC residence permit. If you are a foreigner, you have to have a company. So at this point, this one is probably out for me, for now at least. Number one, I don't have a company. Number two, it is a bit expensive. Now, what's the other options? The aforementioned ECPay, they also have their own e-commerce platform, somewhat mimicking the Shopline story. And at least at first glance, they don't require a company setup. However, they do require a Chinese name, which I don't have. So this one is also out. Finally, I came across Easy Store, which is based in Malaysia, but operates across all Asia. So far, through the interactions, they have seemed the most flexible and open-minded about the things. Don't need a company, don't need a Chinese name. So they provide free hosting under their own domain name, easy.co, easy.co, which is also helpful if you want to avoid domain name and hosting fees for the initial period. And they don't, however, have a native inbuilt payment solution, so that's a bit of a hurdle. And the problem here is that their third-party providers, some of them do require a company setup, like the aforementioned ECPay, or you can choose something like PayPal, which doesn't require a company. You can do it on the individual account, but that is a rather expensive option. Usually there is a minimum $2 fee per transaction plus to 25% of the value, so which is potentially problematic down the line. Yeah, and there's a host of other lesser known providers which I haven't investigated yet. In the dry balance of the things, a foreigner without a company set up in Taiwan, short of setting up a company or using a local partner, has literally, it seems, 3 workable options. That's either an eBay individual account, registered and shipping from Taiwan, or an Etsy store registered in Hong Kong or Singapore, but shipping from Taiwan. Taxes issue to be sorted out. Or an easy store setup with a payment gateway, again, yet to be sorted out, most likely an expensive PayPal solution. If you know of anything else that works, let me know in the comments. So anyway, these are the interim findings, conclusions so far. If there's any additional lessons or conclusions, experiences, I might update, post another video on this topic. Yeah, and hopefully things will become a little easier in the future, because it's been a bit of an overly complicated journey. I think way more complicated than it should be.